Welcome to CrimePod Castle's Unsolved Mystery Series, episode 98.
98.
Yeah, this is it.
Wow.
Tonight, we're taking you to the village of Jind in Haryana, India,
Okay.
2017. And what should have been just another normal night turned into a horrific scene that still has folks scratching their heads.
Yeah.
We're diving into the double murder of Ramesh Kumar, a well-respected 52-year-old farmer, and Pooja Devi, a 28-year-old teacher who had recently moved back to care for her sick mother.
What makes this case so perplexing is that Ramesh and Pooja had no connection whatsoever.
Really?
Yeah, which immediately makes you wonder,
Like, how could this be?
how did their paths tragically collide?
Right, you'd expect there to be like some link,
Right.
especially in a village where everyone knows everyone, right? So let's paint a picture of Jind.
Okay.
It's a tight-knit community, the kind of place where news travels fast and secrets are hard to keep.
Exactly. So you can imagine the shockwaves that rippled through the village when news of the murders broke.
Oh, yeah.
It was October 12th,
Okay.
a seemingly ordinary night, until it wasn't.
Okay, so walk us through the timeline. What were the first discoveries that set this whole investigation in motion?
So around midnight, some villagers near Ramesh's farmhouse reported hearing a commotion.
Oh, no.
When they rushed over to see what was happening, they found Ramesh's body lying in the courtyard.
Oh, my gosh.
He had been stabbed multiple times, and signs of a struggle were evident.
Oh, wow.
This man clearly fought for his life.
It sounds like it.
His gold chain and wallet were missing, leading many to initially suspect robbery.
So, a chaotic crime scene, signs of a struggle, items stolen.
Right.
It seems like an open and shut robbery case, right?
Except just a couple of hours later, Pooja's body is discovered in a field not too far from Ramesh's farmhouse.
Oh, wow.
And this scene is completely different.
Okay.
There's no sign of a struggle, indicating a much more calculated approach.
Interesting.
And instead of being stabbed, she was strangled.
Okay, so totally different MO.
Totally different. Her purse was missing, but again, just like Ramesh, other valuables were left untouched.
Hold on. So we have two seemingly unconnected victims murdered within hours of each other using different methods in the same small village. No wonder this case stumped investigators right from the start.
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Not only were the crime scenes drastically different, but the forensic evidence further muddied the waters.
Oh, no.
You see, the analysis pointed towards the involvement of multiple perpetrators at both scenes.
Multiple people involved. Okay, now it feels like we're stepping into a crime thriller.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And to make matters even more challenging, the DNA profiles found at the crime scenes didn't match any existing records in their database.
So no hits on the DNA.
No hit.
Talk about adding fuel to the fire. What about witnesses? Surely someone in a close-knit community like Jind must have seen or heard something, right?
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But apart from those who heard the commotion near Ramesh's house, no one came forward with any substantial information.
Wow, so everyone was keeping quiet.
It's almost like the entire village held its breath that night.
So, no clear motive, multiple perpetrators, a village shrouded in silence.
It's a mystery.
It's like trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing.
Exactly, and that's why investigators had to explore every possible angle, leading to a handful of theories,
Okay.
each with its own set of questions and complexities.
All right, let's unpack these theories, starting with the one that seems most obvious at first glance.
Okay.
Robbery gone wrong.
Yeah.
We have missing belongings from both victims.
Yeah.
Could that be the answer?
It's definitely the theory that jumps out initially, especially with the missing wallet and gold chain from Ramesh.
Yeah, seems like the most logical thing.
Right.
At least at first.
But if robbery was the sole motive, wouldn't you expect a more straightforward snatch and grab?
Yeah, like why stab someone so many times?
Exactly.
Wait.
The level of violence, especially in Ramesh's case, seems excessive for a simple robbery.
You're right. And the fact that some valuables were left behind adds another layer of doubt.
Yeah, why take a wallet and a gold chain but leave other, potentially more valuable items untouched?
Yeah.
It's almost like they were trying to make it look like a robbery, but something doesn't quite add up.
That's exactly what investigators were grappling with.
Yeah, I can see that.
So while robbery seemed plausible at first, the inconsistencies at the crime scenes forced them to dig deeper and consider other possibilities, leading them to the theory of personal vendettas.
Ah, yes, the classic small-town secrets and grudges that can simmer beneath the surface. What did they uncover about Ramesh and Pooja's lives that could point in that direction?
Well, with Ramesh, the focus was on land disputes.
Okay.
Being a farmer, there were whispers of disagreements he had with other villagers over property boundaries,
Oh, okay.
potentially fueling resentment.
Yeah, I can see that happening.
As for Pooja, some speculated that her more modern ways and independent nature may have ruffled some feathers in the more traditional village setting. So, did any of these leads pan out? Did investigators find any concrete evidence linking these disputes to the murders?
Unfortunately, no.
Really?
While these personal conflicts provided a possible motive,
Right.
there wasn't any concrete evidence to tie them directly to the crimes.
So it was just conjecture.
It was all speculation and hearsay with no hard proof to back it up.
So we're back to square one, no clear motive, no identified suspects.
Right.
Given all the unusual circumstances, I imagine investigators had to consider some less conventional theories as well, right?
They absolutely did.
Okay.
And that's when the possibility of a serial killer or an organized group entered the picture.
Great.
The differing methods of killing, the short time frame between the murders, and the multiple DNA profiles.
Right.
These factors certainly lent credence to this chilling theory.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Okay.
We got two seemingly random victims, two different methods of killing, and multiple perpetrators.
Yeah.
It does sound like something out of a true crime documentary.
It does, and that's why this theory,
Right.
while statistically less likely, couldn't be dismissed outright.
Right.
Investigators had to consider all possibilities,
Yeah.
even the most unsettling ones.
What about the fact that this happened in a small village? Don't serial killers usually operate in larger, more anonymous settings?
That's a valid point, and it's something investigators took into account.
Yeah.
Statistically, it's unusual for a serial killer to target a small, tight-knit community like Jind.
Right.
But again, the evidence was compelling enough to warrant a closer look at this possibility,
Right.
however unlikely it might have seemed.
All right, so we've got robbery, revenge, a potential serial killer.
Okay.
What other explanation could there possibly be for this double tragedy?
Well, there's one more theory, and it's perhaps the most bizarre and unsettling of them all.
Let's hear it.
Investigators had to consider the possibility that these two murders,
Okay.
despite occurring within hours of each other in the same village,
Right.
were entirely unrelated incidents.
Wait, are you saying that it's possible these were just two separate crimes with two different motives happening purely by chance
Yeah.
on the same night in the same small village?
Yeah.
That seems almost too crazy to believe.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But as improbable as it might sound, investigators couldn't rule it out completely,
Yeah.
statistically. While extremely rare,
Right.
such coincidences are not impossible.
So we have four very different theories, each with its own strengths and weaknesses, but none of them definitively answer the question of who killed Ramesh and Pooja and why.
That's the frustrating part of this case, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
We're left with more questions than answers.
Right.
And for the families of Ramesh and Pooja, the lack of closure must be incredibly difficult to bear.
And for the village of Jind, the impact of these unsolved murders would be profound.
It would.
We'll delve into that in the next part of our deep dive, exploring how this case shook the community to its core and left a lasting legacy of fear and uncertainty.
Sounds good.
We left off talking about the Jind community and the impact these murders must have had on them.
Yeah.
It's one thing to hear about a crime in the news,
Right.
but it's a whole other level of unsettling when it happens right in your backyard in a place you thought was safe.
Absolutely. Imagine living in a village where everyone knows everyone, where doors are left unlocked.
Right.
And then suddenly, this brutal double murder happens.
Yeah.
It shattered their sense of security, their trust in the familiar. It's like a darkness descended on Jind and no one knew where to turn.
You know, it's often said that these kinds of crimes rob a community of its innocence.
Yeah.
Do you think that rings true in Jind's case?
Without a doubt. Before the murders, Jind was like any other small village in India. People went about their daily lives. Children played freely in the streets. Neighbors helped each other out.
Right.
But after that night, fear took root. Parents wouldn't let their kids out of their sight. Even simple errands to the market became anxiety-ridden. The murders forced them to confront a reality they never thought they'd have to face.
It's a stark reminder that even in the most peaceful of places,
Right.
evil can find a way in. So how did the village cope with this newfound fear? Did they make any changes, try to reclaim that lost sense of security?
They did Jind, which had always relied on the strength of community and shared trust for safety,
Right.
suddenly saw a surge in security measures.
Look like what?
Patrols were organized,
Right.
CCTV cameras were installed,
Makes sense.
and some residents even hired private security guards.
It's sad to think that something so horrific had to happen to force these changes. Did these measures provide any comfort, or did the fear linger despite their efforts?
While the increased security provided a sense of precaution,
Okay.
the fear remained palpable.
Really? Wow.
You see, the real issue wasn't just the violence itself, but the lack of answers, the not knowing.
Right.
The perpetrators vanished without a trace, leaving behind a void of uncertainty that gnawed at the community.
You're right. It's the unanswered questions that often haunt us the most.
Yeah.
Did anyone ever come forward with new information, or did the investigation hit a dead end?
Sadly, despite the heightened security and the ongoing investigation, no significant breakthroughs emerged.
Oh, wow.
The perpetrators seem to have melted into thin air,
So they just disappeared.
taking their secrets with them.
It's like they were ghosts,
Right.
appearing out of nowhere to commit these horrific acts and then disappearing just as quickly. Did this lack of closure make it even harder for Jind to heal?
Absolutely. It's one thing to grieve a loss,
Right?
to mourn a loved one, but it's another thing entirely to grieve without understanding why,
Right.
without knowing who was responsible.
Yeah.
The lack of closure amplified the fear and anxiety,
Oh, wow.
preventing the community from truly moving on.
We've talked a lot about the community's experience.
Right.
But let's not forget the families of Ramesh and Pooja.
Yeah.
They're the ones who suffered the most profound loss.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about how they coped with this unimaginable tragedy?
Imagine losing a loved one in such a brutal and senseless way,
Yeah.
and then to be denied the closure of knowing who did it or why.
Right.
The pain they must have endured
It's unimaginable.
and continue to endure is unimaginable.
Their lives were irrevocably changed that night.
Yeah.
What about Ramesh and Pooja as individuals? What were they like? What kind of legacy did they leave behind?
Ramesh Kumar was a pillar of the Jind community. He was a hard-working farmer,
Okay.
respected by everyone who knew him.
Sounds like a good guy.
People would often seek his advice on agricultural matters, and he was known for his generosity and willingness to help others.
And Pooja, a young teacher who had just returned to care for her ailing mother, what was she like?
Pooja was a bright light in Jind.
Oh, wow.
She was passionate about education and wanted to make a difference in the lives of her students.
Wonderful.
She was also a devoted daughter,
Oh.
putting her own life on hold to care for her mother.
It's so sad.
Both Ramesh and Pooja were good people, loved and cherished by their families and friends, and their lives were tragically cut short, leaving behind a void that can never be filled.
It's truly heartbreaking to think about the potential that was lost, the futures that were stolen. As we move towards the end of our deep dive, I think it's important to acknowledge the victims.
Yeah.
Ramesh Kumar, the respected farmer who dedicated his life to his land and community, and Pooja Devi, the young teacher who held so much promise and compassion. Their lives were taken too soon,
That's true.
and they deserve to be remembered, not just as victims of a horrific crime, but as individuals who made a positive impact on those around them.
Their loss will forever be felt in Jind. Their absence is a constant reminder of the tragedy that struck the village, leaving behind a scar that may never fully heal.
We've examined the evidence, explored the theories, and delved into the impact of this case on both the community and the families involved.
Yeah.
But as we wrap up this part of our discussion, the central question remains, who killed Ramesh and Pooja, and why?
That question continues to echo in the hearts and minds of those affected by this tragedy. The Jind Double Murder serves as a stark reminder that sometimes, even with the best efforts of law enforcement, some mysteries remain unsolved. The passage of time may dull the edges of memory, but the pain of loss and the longing for justice endure.
It's a heavy truth to carry, knowing that those responsible are still out there, their motives shrouded in mystery. But even though years have passed, is there still hope that this case could be solved?
There's always hope. Advancements in forensic technology are constantly being made. What might have seemed impossible to analyze a few years ago could be solvable today.
Right.
And we can't underestimate the power of time. Memories can resurface, new witnesses might come forward, or maybe a tiny piece of evidence that seemed insignificant back then could hold the key.
It's a reminder that even cold cases can heat up with the right break. So what would you say to someone out there who might have information about this case, even if they think it's insignificant?
Sometimes the smallest detail about one to seemingly inconsequential observation can be the missing piece of the puzzle. If anyone out there knows anything, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem, please come forward. Your information could be what finally brings justice for Ramesh and Pooja and offers their families some measure of closure.
It's a call to action, for sure. But beyond the hope for justice, this case, like many unsolved mysteries, leaves us grappling with something bigger. something that goes beyond the specifics of the crime itself.
You're absolutely right. In our quest to understand the why and the how of crimes like this,
Yeah.
we often focus on the evidence, the timelines, the forensic analysis.
Hmm.
But it's crucial to remember that behind every crime, there's a human element, a complex web of relationships, motivations, and emotions.
You can't forget that these were real people with lives and loved ones, and their stories deserve to be told, their memories honored.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're saying is even for those responsible, understanding their motivations, their psychology is essential, right?
Exactly. Whether it was a personal grudge, a desire for revenge, a moment of uncontrolled rage, or something else entirely human emotions, often play a significant role in driving criminal behavior. And in the Jind Double Murder, the brutality of the crimes, the contrasting methods used, all point to a level of emotional intensity that can't be ignored.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
It suggests that this wasn't just a random act of violence,
Right.
a cold, calculated crime.
Right.
There was something deeper at play, something that speaks to the darkest corners of human nature.
Precisely. And while we may never fully understand what drove those responsible to commit such horrific acts, the Jind Double Murder serves as a chilling reminder of the complexities of the human psyche, the unpredictable nature of human behavior.
Yeah, for sure. As we conclude this deep dive, I want to thank you, our listeners, for joining us on this journey into the heart of a mystery that continues to captivate and challenge us. Though the answers remain elusive, the pursuit of truth and justice should never be abandoned. We must keep these stories alive, not just as cautionary tales, but as reminders of the fragility of life, the enduring power of hope, and the importance of never giving up on the search for answers.
That's right.
And to our listeners who are just as fascinated by unsolved mysteries as we are, remember to follow and subscribe to CrimePod Castle for more deep dives into India's most perplexing cases. We're dedicated to bringing you well-researched, insightful explorations, always with the hope that our work might in some small way contribute to finding answers and bringing closure to those affected. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and as always, keep your minds open to the mysteries that surround us.